Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where Warner Brothers continues to clean house when it comes to their DCEU, aka their DC Extended Universe. That name is so horrible, but I guess that's last on their to-do list as they try to fix things up, because they've invested a lot of money into their DC movies, and of course there's a lot of money to be made if they can get it right. We're all holding our breath waiting for Zack Snyder to get the axe, or at least a significantly reduced role. I guess his role is a little bit reduced already, but I saw someone commenting on the fact that it was surprising that Zack Snyder is still the main, just the only director on Justice League Part 1, but I guess cameras have already started rolling, and there is some discussion as to how much creative freedom he has as that director. But anyway, as you know, Jeff Johns and John Berg have stepped up to run the DC Movies division together. We've discussed that at length already. If you didn't see my episode on that, I'll put a link down below in the video description to give you the pros and cons of that development. But there's some new information coming to light, and that's that John Berg has been flown out to London to be involved day to day on the production of Justice League Part 1, so to oversee it and to make sure it doesn't go too far off the rails. Of course, Ben Affleck is executive producing, but he was also on set for the first, for Batman v Superman, so more changes are needed, and more changes have been made, and that's with Charles Roven being taken off as like one of the main producers of the DC movies. He was producing all of them. He's been producing them since Batman Begins. And he was supposed to produce them going forward and, to be a producer on every single DC movie, but that will no longer be the case. Now, you've seen Charles Roven. Charles Roven did a pretty good job getting publicity for himself as one of the main masterminds behind the DC movies. I forget the other guy's name. There's another guy, I think his name is like Mike something, Michael Brown it might be, and he has also made a little bit of a cottage industry out of being associated with Nolan's Batman movies, etc. So these two gentlemen got a lot out of being involved with the franchises, and I think to some degree taking a little bit of credit for Nolan's success. But I think it's clear at this point that the only person who was responsible for Nolan's success was Nolan, because when you remove him from the equation, you're unable to duplicate that initial success. Now again, I liked Batman v Superman quite a bit, but there's no denying that there are problems. Do I think that Warner Brothers is making the right decisions on how to fix these problems? I'm not sure. I think getting rid of Charles Roven is a good idea, and I'm surprised I think the biggest problem is that they have old school Hollywood thinking at play here, right? And I still think to some degree they have old school Hollywood thinking at play, because there are too many cooks in the kitchen. As I said before, Jeff Johns and John Berg report to two different people. They seem at odds. How can you have co-heads of anything? It just seems like you're leading to more indecision. But Charles Roven is an old school Hollywood producer. He's, I saw some coverage of this last night, and people said, oh, Charles Roven has some good movies to his name, American Hustle, etc., But I think if you really take a hard look at Charles Roven's resume of films, nothing really stands out amazing. Like, Charles Roven never seems to be the secret ingredient. He is not one of those prolific producers who has a lot of hits. I mean, he misses as much as he hits. So that to me says that Charles Roven is very good in a room. He's very good in a pitch. But he's not a driving talent. He's not one of those great producers, right? Like, you know who those are. Scott Rudin, Harvey Weinstein, Jerry Bruckheimer, Joel Silver to some degree, Kevin Feige now, Jason Blum. Those are like your creative producers. And Charles Roven sounds to me like he is not part of that group. So I was surprised it took them that long to get rid of him. As soon as he started doing mass publicity for these movies, I probably would have gotten rid of him, because I would be like, Charles, you seem to be getting more out of this franchise than you're putting in. So we'll see. I think that they would really behoove Warner Brothers to find some people who actually like DC Comics. So that's why I think Jeff Johns, that's one of the good things about Jeff Johns' increased involvement. But, to get some comic book lovers in there. One of my pet peeves about Hollywood as a whole is that often you'll find that the people who make the movies don't actually go to the movies. They have a lot of disdain for the audience and the product that they put out, and, particularly the blockbusters sometimes, where they're like, I got to make the blockbusters because that's what the people like, and it's the tentpole that funds my little movie passion projects. And I think that Hollywood would really benefit as a whole if it were to get more people involved who actually like what they're producing. Now, speaking of liking what you're producing or what you're involved with, let's move over to Jennifer Lawrence. We've been discussing her. I talked about her, threatening Fox, and some Jennifer Lawrence fans took issue with the way I worded that. But I mean, when someone says Fox should be terrified because they're very strongly saying that there's going to be a mass walkout if not three people, the three main actors are brought back, in this case Lawrence, McAvoy, and Fassbender, that seems like a threat to me. That's how I would take it. But I guess some people would argue it's just strong negotiation skills. But we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But I'd be very curious to see how Jennifer Lawrence's very strong fans can defend her latest comments. I got forwarded this interview by a number of people yesterday, and that was Jennifer Lawrence on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, talking about how her publicist got angry with her because she said that, she actually said in interviews, I can't believe she actually said this in interviews, you don't have to go to see X-Men Apocalypse if you don't want to. Like, what? It was really shocking. And the fact that she would not only make that mistake in the first place, but then tell it as a funny story on a very widely watched show right before the movie hits theaters, to me, is absolutely amazing. She is super lucky that a lot of people have already written her off in terms of her involvement in the film, and also that Alice seems to be no competition for X-Men, and so X-Men is in a pretty strong position anyway, even if she does weaken it a little bit with comments like that. She also told a story about how when she started out, she made a joke at a press conference. Kim Basinger was in a film that she was in, and some people asked where Kim Basinger was, and Kim Basinger simply wasn't able to attend this a foreign press conference. And Jennifer Lawrence leaned forward and made the joke that Kim died. And she said, "Oh, I was thrown into publicity school, but luckily it didn't take." And I'd be like, I wouldn't brag about that at this point, Jennifer. But here's the reason you can't say that about Kim Basinger. First of all, it's incredibly disrespectful to a coworker, right? And especially at that point, someone who had more of a career than Jennifer Lawrence. Kim Basinger was an Oscar winner at first, right? But here's the thing, Kim Basinger, well, I think you never want to joke about anyone being dead. I think that's in pretty poor taste. But particularly when someone, what are you saying? Kim Basinger died, her career died. It crosses the line, and it's really an effort to make yourself stand out at the expense of someone else. And, nobody, particularly, I was going to say in a creative field, but in any field, nobody wants to be in a group with somebody who's really out for themselves and they're willing to throw their, everybody else under the bus, right? Especially if that person's just innocently sitting there doing nothing. Maybe Kim Basinger should have been at the press conference. Maybe that'll teach her not to skip press conferences. But I think that Jennifer Lawrence, she was doing very well with her public relations. I was very impressed with how she won over a lot of people with this idea that she was really keeping it real. But I think she really needs to be careful and rein it in because I think she's lost a little bit of her mojo. But again, I know some of you really defend Jennifer Lawrence, so I'm very curious to see how you defend her on this latest comment, because I think it's pretty indefensible to have a movie studio pay for you to be in a movie, quite a bit of money, pay for you to fly to these press junkets around the world, put you up in a nice hotel, and help your career being part of this major franchise, and then for you to sit in that press room and then say on camera, you don't have to go. If you don't want to go, don't go. I mean, that's just really amazing. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story, I think the really interesting thing is to see if this will actually end up affecting her at the box office. That's the only way we'll know if it's taken a toll. I don't think it's going to affect X-Men Apocalypse, but I think that Passengers is something that she should be concerned about. Although Chris Pratt is just so darn likable, he might save her there. All right, so let's go to the third story of the day. This is a really amazing story on two fronts. Well, the headline is that the Beauty and the Beast trailer, which debuted on Monday morning on Good Morning America, is now the most viewed trailer in a single day with 91 million views. It has unseated Star Wars The Force Awakens, which had 88. Then also, they've said by comparison, Civil War had 61 million. Then the second teaser for Star Wars The Force Awakens had 55, and Age of Ultron 34. First of all, those are all Disney trailers, and Disney is really, really easygoing with letting people It's like HBO, as we've said before. They're just like, please talk about my work, be very prolific, get it out there. And you can see right away the benefits of that. But also the beauty, so Disney continues to just be absolutely on fire. From some of, not only creatively, but I think, very smart in a number of they're very shrewd with their business practices. But for Beauty and the Beast to unseat Star Wars The Force Awakens, that's pretty shocking. It's an amazing trailer. That means repeat viewing. But with the music and everything, it's just very, very well done. And I think that shows that's going to be a mega hit. That's coming out March 17th, 2017. And if I were any movie in its wake, I would be very afraid at this point already. But that's very, very impressive. And it just shows, for something like Beauty and the Beast to be on the level of Star Wars, I think that the nostalgia bent in Hollywood isn't going away anytime soon. But that's really fantastic for also Emma Watson. She's the only person who appears in the trailer, just briefly. But she just hang in there when you're in Hollywood, right? Because this is someone who has been box office poison, can't get anything done. Her movies have flop after flop after flop, and all of a sudden she finds herself in arguably the most anticipated movie. Well, there's episode 8 in 2017 as well, but wow. And also, by the way, 2 movies headed up by women. Very interesting indeed. Although, the Beast's kind of important to the story too. We'll see how that turns out. But I thought that was a great headline. Now, on to the viewer question. This is from Jack Greenhow. And Jack has something to talk about with the Give a Captain America a Boyfriend story that I covered yesterday, which was very interesting because there was really a knee-jerk reaction to that movement. With Give Elsa a Girlfriend, people discussed it, but people did not react as strongly as they did to Give Captain America a Boyfriend. Maybe because this is like a place where we talk about a lot about comic book movies, but a lot of you were really in favor of this, and a lot of you were really against it. So it's very divisive with the Give Captain America a Boyfriend situation. So I thought that was interesting right there. But Jack continues. So Jack says, "Hi, Grace. Love the show, and as I'm in the UK, it makes for great afternoon viewing. In response to the Give Captain America a Boyfriend hashtag, I was just wondering if you think it's likely we'll see some LGBT characters that Marvel still has the rights to in the MCU. More specifically, Wiccan and Hulkling from the Young Avengers. We know that Cassie Lang exists in the MCU, and with the introduction of the Scarlet Witch and the Kree, we haven't seen the Skrulls yet. It makes sense that to introduce Wiccan and Hulking, as they both come from the cosmic and magical aspects of the Marvel Universe. Also, the inclusion of Wiccan's twin brother Speed would give the MCU a speedster without bringing Quicksilver back, and Kate Bishop's Hawkeye and Miss America would be cool to see. Basically, Jack would really like to see a Young Avengers property. It would mean a lot if you discussed actual LGBT characters, rather than changing already established ones." Very well said, Jack. Keep up the great work, Jack. Well, here's the thing. I agree that it would be wonderful to have an original character, but someone's going to have to take that first leap. There's a rumor that there's a gay character in Independence Day Resurgence. We'll see if that's the truth, and we'll see how it's accepted. That would be wonderful if Roland Emmerich were able to pull that off, having a gay character who was not there for comic relief or to be stereotypical, but was just one of the heroes in the movie that happened to be gay. So we'll see if that's the case. They haven't used it at all in the ad campaign. They're not really discussing these moves in the ad campaign. I talked about Neighbors 2 being extremely progressive, but that was something you didn't discover till you were actually seated in the theater. Now, with Wiccan and Hulkling, I don't see a Young Avengers movie coming along anytime soon. Maybe as a television show, but Marvel's already very prolific in the television department. I mean, we're just starting to see some romance between the Vision and Scarlet Witch. I don't see Wiccan and Speed coming anytime soon. I also, I also just think that they're not going to work on a new generation, like a young generation of characters, when, they already have a young Spider-Man, and etc. Maybe you could see it, maybe in the Spider-Man universe, some of these characters might get looped in, but I really honestly don't see it happening anytime soon, which is unfortunate. And I also think that because you can see the reaction to the Captain America boyfriend situation, it's going to be very risky for Feige. I mean, Feige doesn't even want to make a movie with a female lead, right? I mean, he says he does, but where is it? I mean, look how long it took to get Black Panther off the ground. But I mean, I think to Feige's credit, it's gotten off the ground in spectacular fashion finally. But I just think that it's still a lightning rod topic, and I think that you will find that any studio will be reluctant to risk their brand with something that could really perhaps rub the audience the wrong way. Somebody's going to have to make the first move. That's again why I think we should keep an eye on Roland Emmerich's Independence Day resurgence. But I think that you're probably going to see more in television than you are in film for the time being. You've seen a little bit of that in the MCU. On the Marvel Netflix shows. Also, The Real O'Neills is very progressive on ABC, that sitcom. It's actually incredibly progressive, and I think in a very positive way. It's also just a funny show. That's one of the ways The Real O'Neills is so progressive. It's funny. One of the lead characters happens to be gay, but not every episode revolves around that. And it alters the family dynamic slightly, but the family's still able to be the family they were before. And I think that's really important to show, right? I think that's really, I can't recommend The Real O'Neills actually highly enough. I just watched it last night, the season finale, so that's why it's fresh on my mind. But television is where these changes are taking place right now, and I think the only way you're going to see a movie do this, even look at Deadpool. Deadpool was a huge tease on that pansexuality. It did not exist in the actual movie. And I don't think you're going to see it for quite some time until maybe someone needs to take a risk. Maybe someone will need this support of that community to help their property. But right now, look what even happened to The Legend of Korra when they decided to have that ending with Korra and Asami. It got booted to digital. Nickelodeon didn't want to even air it on their network. So there's a long ways to go. Progress is being made, but I think that it's going to be quite some time. We're still working on ethnicity and gender diversity and representation, and unfortunately, LGBT characters are after that. Also Asian characters, I guess that falls under ethnicity, but there's a long line of people wanting representation, and I think that the only way it's going to work is if each group pushes independently. I guess at the end of the day, I wish I had better news for you, Jack, but at the end of the day, everything Hollywood does is spurred by money. So if someone can create a really popular gay character that everybody likes and will pay to see, that will open the floodgates. So let's see what happens with Independence Day. All right, that's today's morning movie news. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question. What are your thoughts on it? Anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.